What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, that team reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers in 2022 and 2021. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And you are watching live the Dr. Vibe Show. So before we get our friend up here, and she has long days all the time. So we value her taking some of her time and energy to spend it on us. So before we go any further, just a few things. As always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show, especially on YouTube, and hit the notification button. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And also, if you'd like to advertise your business, product, or service on the platform or any of the platforms that I host, just email me, dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. As I said, we have one of our most special friends coming to the platform, and she makes myself and a lot of other Black people's, and I think non-Black people's lives better. You know, I don't think she's B1, as her husband say, B1 first, but I have a feeling she helps other people's lives get better. If you don't know who she is, you're gonna find about her now. Her name is Dr. Alicia Watkins. What is going on, Dr. Alicia? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Now, how are you? I love asking you how you're doing.
I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem, and Black Alicia. Sorry,
Yay,
I forgot the Black
I love it.
Black Alicia. So I'm doing fine. And what's going on in your world these days?
Man, I'm getting ready for the All Black National Convention in Atlanta starting on Friday. I'm traveling out tomorrow, bringing the whole family with me.
The whole family's going?
Let me tell you, I had to make some phone calls to these schools and say, your students will be missing. So
wow.
Yes, a family affair. This is our exciting time. The whole Black family comes along.
How does it feel to have family, not only in your and Boyce's lives, but also in the business and the things that you do to serve other Black people?
Okay. It gives me a sense of purpose because it's so fascinating just preparing for today. And I was reading over all this stuff about the Black family and trauma, and I tell you, having like your own business and having the family contribute to this business, and the fact that what we do is we serve primarily other Black individuals, and we have like a very clear message on how we're going to do that. It's healing. It's therapeutic. It helps to give us purpose, because thinking about Black families and all of the trauma, it almost makes me feel a little angry. And I think like allowing yourself to be angry is also therapeutic, because you should be mad at what's going on. If you're not, you're like have totally disassociated from the situation and just want to put blinders on and not want to acknowledge how we as Black people have been treated, not only in America, but in the world historically. So anyway, yeah, it feels really good to have this purpose. I feel, honestly, Dr. Vibe, I really feel honored. I really do. And I didn't, like, when I first started dating Boyce, I mean, we've been friends forever. When I first started dating him, I was like, no way. There's no way I am doing this. I told him, I said, we're going to keep our lives separate. Let's do things separate. And I just felt like on a very subconscious level, maybe this is exactly what I needed. I didn't know it at the time. It was really what I needed, so that I can heal. And then I can also serve other people who are ready to face things and get healed as well. So that's a long story, but it is very honest. And how wonderful. I mean, my kids are right now packaging up, orders and sending them out. It's great. And they want their
Uh,
money too. We pay them.
well, I'm going to be one of those orders in the near future because I want my autographed copy of the 10 Commandments.
Oh, yeah. You got to come to the convention, Dr. Vibe. What's up?
It's, you know what? You're going to probably say excuses. Well, the Canadian dollar compared to the US dollar
I could
is
do a discount. You could get it. You could get a
okay.
special discount.
Okay. You know what? It's probably late to do this now, but we're going to talk from now about next year
Okay.
because the co-host of my morning show, Ryan Knight of the who's a co-executive director of the Afro-Canadian Business Network, a number of years ago, Boyce had his conference. I think he was saying in Cleveland. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he went to it, and he was one of the few. Like you could count how many on this hand, how many Black Canadians were there. And he got so much attention because they're going, what? You're from Canada? What? So, and myself and Ryan talked about it offline just the other day, said we've got to make a focus to come next year. And what we're actually wanting to do too is we want to do one of our morning shows from the convention.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got to do it. And then we'll pull Boyce out and see if we can get him to sit down. And
yes.
That'd be awesome.
Well, it's better than having him spend 13 hours with Kanye, I guess.
Oh my gosh. I really wish him well because he could potentially do so much great things. Yeah. And I just really wish he gets his mental health together. That's all.
Well, and Dr. Alicia, one of the many things that myself and I'm sure many others have love for you about is you always have hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not every Black person has the hope that you and Boyce have. You channel it in different ways, mm-hmm. right? But you both have hope. You're definitely equally yoked when it comes to hope for Black people.
Yeah, and I don't blame, like, if there are Black people who are hopeless, I don't blame them. I don't really blame them. Like, yeah, sometimes I get very cynical and apathetic, and sometimes I go there. I mean, it's a I don't know. It's something we all kind of like wax and wane in and out and how we deal with things. But however we deal with it, all of it is just understandable. We'll put it that way. I don't want to get into a place where we judge people. You got to always keep hope alive. No, you don't. It's okay to be angry and cynical.
Absolutely. Well, before we go any further, some people watching. Christopher Lawrence says greetings. And then Elemental Notes, wonderful lady. Actually, you'd be great to meet her. She's a herb. She does with nutritious, holistic herbs.
Oh, yes.
One of her key things is she introduced me to elderberry.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? Let me just tell you. I mean, I'm getting into the topic kind of like in a roundabout a certain way. But when this is what you just described, that's Black science. We as Black people have always done these holistic and alternative things, and it's so funny because a lot of and hats off to a lot of the granola crunch white people that like love these sort of practices and get into this because they're keeping it alive. And I think that like when you trace the history of a lot of these holistic and herbal stuff, it's from Africa, it's from us, and I think what's happened to us, we've been so slavery and transcontinental slavery, all that, we've just been removed from who and what we are. And a lot of Black people get back to who we are. But I love this, what is it, Elemental Notes? That is so beautiful because that is a way for us to join back into who and what we really are as a people.
Well, I know that she appreciates those words. And Elemental Notes, you should just take that. If you want, you can get that clip from me and you should use that as promotional. Hello. Endorsement from Dr. Alicia Watkins. Hello. And she'll be messaging me on the back channel saying, Dr. Vibe, when can you get me that clip? So it's one of those things. So this is another small subject that we're chatting about tonight, Black family and trauma. And before we went live, I told I shared with Dr. Alicia, I have about 20 different areas of this. So
where you want to go today? Where you want to go, Dr.
yeah.
Vibe?
Okay, so you see, Elemental Notes goes, I do, and I would love to. Thank you, LOL. And she said, yes, I will. So she's gonna be, she's like that. She makes a decision and takes action. Makes a decision. So I'm gonna tell people ahead of time whether you're watching this live on the replay, and I feel bad. I should have shared this link with the Black Enough community.
Oh well. Are
But
you on there, Black Enough?
Yes.
Black
Well,
Enough?
it's now. What's it now? What has Boyce called it now?
He's calling to B1 Nation. He decided to change the name.
Yeah, b1nation.us. So if you
Okay.
want to join a great online group with like-minded, smart, as Dr. Boyce would say, smart and intelligent Black people, go there. They'll ask you 3 questions and you'll get in. But what I'm going to do is when I finish this, I'll give the replay link and I'll post it in there. But next time we'll make it happen live. So this may be a long. This is not. I think we're going to look at a multi-part series about different elements of Black family and trauma, because just the first conversation point I'm going to bring up, we could go forever.
Wherever you want to go, I'm going right on with you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So let's talk about Black family and trauma, historical trauma, like the historical trauma faced by Black families, such as slavery, segregation, and the ongoing impact.
Yeah, I mean, historical trauma, it is related to intergenerational trauma. It's a part of intergenerational trauma. And it happens like across our lifespan and also across generations, right? So it's, and you think about historical trauma, you always think about mass group traumatic experiences. And I think one of the wonderful examples of that is slavery. It's a historical trauma within Black communities. And I think it's still recognized that we as Black individuals and families are still wounded by being kidnapped, stripped of our ancestral culture, our herbal culture, and separated from family members during slave auctions, inhumane treatment, the slave codes. Even after slavery was abolished, you still have years of Jim Crow lynching, all sorts of brutalities. And I think just Black people have just been subjugated to all sorts of different types of historical trauma. And I think what's interesting is that even in my practice, I get a lot of individuals who have current trauma. You know, they have things going on currently. But when I sit and talk to them, a lot of it is compounded by this historical trauma, even just passed down intergenerationally. Yeah, I mean, their grandmother, you know, all of these things that their grandmother has experienced, their grandfather has experienced, all of these are just passed down. So it just kind of like has a cumulative effect on who we are. So that's what the historical trauma has done to us. And even before slavery, I mean, just think about the invasion of white people into Africa. Think about how Africa was before white people came there and stole people away. You know, think about agriculture. Africa was a place where there was rich resources. You know, the weather was conducive, the soil was very fertile. I was talking to a friend of mine from Africa, and he said, shoot, you throw a seed somewhere and something's going to grow. You don't even have to think about it. So think about that. That means historically we came from a place of abundance. That means that we didn't have to fight each other. We didn't have to be evil and mean to each other because resources were limited. We historically come from a place where there's ample resources. And if you think about, like, and part of that is in our culture too. And when I think about invaders, until the invaders came in, you think about that. Europe is a cold rock. There's not a lot of fertile thing. Resources are limited, and there was a lot of fighting. There's a lot of just nastiness because it's cold, it's dark. There wasn't plenty of anything. So if you think about it in those terms, that had an effect on our culture and who and what we are. We're very open, we're very loving and forgiving because we come from a place of abundance in terms of agriculture. And a lot of that has been taken away from us. We've been stripped of our culture and placed in slavery for 400 years.
Thank you for sharing as always. I want to go a little deeper on this. In what ways, through your lens, do you see that many Black people have not been able to break historical trauma? What sort of behaviors or thought process that you see, whether it's in your practice or in general society, you still see the effects of historical trauma amongst many Black people?
Yeah, I teach this in my class because every student in my class has to read the story of Henrietta Lacks, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I don't know if people ever heard of Henrietta Lacks. People in the chat, have you heard of Henrietta Lacks?
No, please educate us.
You haven't?
Please.
Okay,
No.
Henrietta Lacks was a African-American lady in Baltimore, Maryland, who had cervical cancer. And during the time they were treating her for cervical cancer, they took her cells without permission. So I teach research. And so every student in my research class, they all have to read that book and talk about the ethical violations, right? But really, what am I teaching? I'm teaching historical trauma to social work students, right? So they took her cells without her permission, and her cells just would not stop duplicating. Long story short, scientists got a hold of this. It's called the HeLa cells. Scientists got a hold of this, and based on the cells of this lady who was living in abject poverty at the time, they built $1 billion industry. Henrietta Lacks' cells has been the cure of numerous diseases. Polio vaccine, all these vaccines have been used. All of these labs, research labs, are using her cells that were stolen from her.
Right.
Built this $1 billion industry off her, and to this day, her family and her descendants are still living in poverty to this day. And there was a lady, a white lady by the name of Elizabeth Skloot, and she learned about it and was like, how's this even possible? What? So she went on this quest. She was in a community college, believe it or not. Some community college lady learned about this and was like, wait, how is everybody not in uproar about what's happened? So she went on a quest to document the story of Henrietta Lacks and wrote a book on it. And that's the book that I have my students read. And we have lots of online discussions about it. But, that is what I do in teaching students this is I say, listen, in Baltimore, and everybody knows about how Black people were treated medically. There's what's called healthy paranoia. Black people don't really trust psychologists. They don't really trust social workers. They don't really trust medical professionals because of all of this historical traumatic things that's happened. I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, John Andrews Hospital, ground zero of the Tuskegee experiment.
Wow.
I was born in that hospital.
Okay, say that again, because I want people to hear that. Please say that again.
Yeah, I was born in John Andrews Hospital in Tuskegee, Alabama. And it was funny because my parents were living in Auburn, which is like a half hour away. My dad was determined that I was going to be born in John Andrews Hospital. So he had to push my mom in the car and rush down to Tuskegee because he wanted that to be part of my birth story. And I think, and that's kind of interesting, but I think that at the time, John Andrews Hospital was think, one of the very first hospitals that would serve Black patients, that would work with Black patients in the South. And so it's a very historical place, but that was also ground zero of the Tuskegee experiment. I mean, to this day in Tuskegee, you can't get Black people to take a HIV/AIDS test. Or I bet you they didn't want to get the jab, because that's historical trauma. And think about it, it's a survival mechanism. You can't look at those people and say, oh, how stupid are they? They don't even want to get HIV/AIDS test. They don't want to get, well, yeah, I mean, we got the syphilis experiment of deliberately giving a mass of Black people syphilis, having the cure for syphilis and not giving them the withholding treatment, and watching generations and generations of Black people, watching them go through very painful things. They were losing their eyesight. All these things were happening to them at the time, having a cure for it and not giving it to them. I mean, that is a special kind of evil to do something. The United States government did that to them. I mean, these are great illustrations of historical trauma and how there's a healthy paranoia that we have about helping professionals. So here I am, I'm being trained, at a university with these thoughts and these theories and all of these things that are developed by the people who hated us, and here I am as a social worker of all things. Let's not talk about the 1980s, when the crack epidemic, if you had a baby and it had a little bit of crack in them, immediately your baby was taken away. That's a myth. Those crack babies grew up and they were fine. They were just like everybody else. It didn't have a toll on them as much as they thought it would. So now there's a historical traumatic event that happened in the 80s. And people don't trust. That's why Black people, we don't be trusting people. We have like an avoidance. Don't go over there because you can't do that. Big Mama is telling you what to do and what not to do. We can be very paranoid, but it's a survival mechanism because you needed to have that to survive. Yeah,
absolutely. You're dropping knowledge bombs as usual. Elemental Notes says she has heard of that lady you mentioned. She says she's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about my work.
Yeah, that story. Let me tell you, I read that book, Dr. Vibe, and like I'm crying in the car. Tears are coming down. It is a beautiful book. I'm listening to it in the audiobook. I read the book twice and listened to the audiobook like 3 times because I teach it in my class. So I'm I'm very well versed on that book, but it still gets me going. Yeah.
Well, and Elemental Notes also says this is one of the many reasons melanated people are so iffy about having procedures done on them by the conventional medical system. Did you know that her family does not know where her grave is?
No idea.
Wow.
Oh, and what they did to Henrietta Lacks's daughter. She had a daughter who was who had some sort of mental cognitive delay. And they just shoved her into an institution and forgot all about her. And she ended up dying and institutionalized. Just horrific things have happened. Maryland is just known for that. Baltimore, people are very, rightfully so, paranoid because of the hospitals over there. Yeah.
Wow. So and I maybe you didn't get a chance to answer, but how do you see in some of the behavior of some Black individuals the impact of still today historical trauma?
A lot of it comes from how Black people raise their children too. I mean, part of historical trauma deals with the fact that some of us think that it's okay to use corporal punishment, and some of the ways that we raise our children on an individual level. And how, it's like, spare the rod, spoil the child, like that sort of mentality. And I think what's happening is that some of the kids, well, first of all, some of the children just have a lot of traumatic experiences, either with abuse and or neglect. And I just think that when we look at some of the numbers, let me pull up some of the numbers over here. Okay, so what I'm seeing here, I looked and get a load of this. Black people are 9%, have a 9% higher probability of having post-traumatic stress disorder with their families, right? And a lot of it deals with some of the violence in our Black communities. So let's see. Okay. So we know this with high rates of violence in Black communities. So homicide is the leading cause of death for Black males.
Mm-hmm.
Ages 15 to 19, 52% cause of death, ages 15 to 19, ages 20 to 24, 47% homicide. 25 to 34, it goes to 33%. And in terms of traumatic experiences, for every Black male death, there are 4 others that are hospitalized for gunshot injuries.
Wow.
So that tells us that they have witnessed and experienced at a young age their friends die from gunshot wounds. And they're hospitalized because it could have been them. And then here they are left with this sort of this memory, this really awful memory, traumatic memory that's happened to them. And so this kind of overexposure to trauma and what happens in a lot of impoverished neighborhoods, this is what we see. And I'm gonna tell you, I come from Gary, Indiana, right? But I don't live there right now. I live in a nice, neat suburb. It's very safe here. I don't have to worry about anything traumatic, but I still have family in Gary. And even if I didn't have family in Gary, I'm still closely tied to the Black community. I don't care where they are, all over. Anybody that looks like me and looks like people in my family and people that I love, to even just to hear, or even to just have someone tell me the story of something that's happened in these communities, I'm connected spiritually, emotionally connected to this. So I'm thinking, even though I'm not in it, I'm still affected by it vicariously. So I'm thinking I got this vicarious trauma, not only in the work that I do every day, because most of the people that I see in my office do have a history of trauma, have something in their history that has been, that they've experienced on the individual level, where they feel like they need to work through some things. They're having anxiety and they're re-experiencing some things. I have not everybody, but most people have that. So I'm like, I'm head to shoulders deep into a lot of this stuff. And I have to have my own self-care as a professional, because, treatment does work. It's, these things happen to you, but on the other side of this, if you have a nice, safe space for which to talk about some of these very painful things that have happened to you and make meaning out of it, and be able to sit and reflect and think about the effect it's had on you and how you can regulate yourself so that you can break this generational curse, break it so that you don't carry on some of these behaviors that doesn't serve you anymore. So it's a lot that you have to go through. And then, of course, high rates of poverty also is a huge contributor. Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we have some comments. We're going to bring them back. We're going to take a 90-second break.
Okay.
And you're going to find this break a real interesting. It's a good surprise that I'm going to do on this break. But we are talking with Dr. Alicia Watkins, and everywhere, just go coaching with a doctor with Dr. Alicia, I believe, is your website.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
It's on the screen. There you go.
Coaching.com. And then how do you have a subtitle? I love that you have that up there.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a little 90-second break. Then we're going to come back with some comments. And there's a question from Elemental Notes. I have a theme. We're just going to ride this out through the whole conversation. And this is part of a series. I'm officially saying we're going to be doing a Black family and trauma series with Dr. Alicia. But we'll be back in 90 seconds. Hold tight. Here we go.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. You know, seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, you know, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room,
Overly
and
sexualized Black
over
folks.
like the twerkers and the, you know, just people that, you know, don't always represent the best of us. You know, the diversity. You know, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe.
They
Dr.
really
Vibe
should.
he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. You know, a lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. You know, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
That's so wonderful. I love that you've been paying attention.
Well, this is the thing, and just to shout you out, I also do a Monday and Friday show at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and that is played during each show, middle of each show. So we don't forget you, and so you can tell Dr. Boyce he's on the you and him are on the platform for 90 seconds every Monday and Friday morning.
That's cool. I love the Underground Railroad. I love that whole thing. That really resonated with me. I really need to stick with that a little more often. I need to remember to say that about myself, but because really, I really do feel like maybe that is my calling.
Okay.
That is my calling.
Absolutely. So a few things. Someone says hello, Dr. Tachi.
Yay, Dr. Tachi. I love her.
She says hello. Dr. Tachi hosts the livest program about media, tech, and pop culture. Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m. Instagram Live, 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and other platforms. And slowly but surely launching her own independent creators network called Indie Soup Media. So she's got some things happening, and I know you two haven't had a chat outside of when you've been on the platform. So I'm gonna make that happen when you come back from the conference.
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
Okay, when
sure.
you come back
I wanted to talk to. I've been meaning to reach out to her because I got some thoughts.
Okay, Dr. Tachi, you heard, and Dr. Alicia has shared some of those with me, but I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna bring you two together. I'm gonna play three monkeys, hear no, see nor speak no evil, and I'm just gonna share those comments. So this is gonna be good. Elemental Notes is saying, "Hey, Dr. Tachi." So they're like digital family, and Dr. Tachi goes, "Yes." So this is fantastic. So we're talking about Black family and trauma. I guess we're talking about historical trauma in the Black family, but Elemental Notes has questions for you. Are you ready?
Okay, what lay it on me. What you got?
All right, lay it on me. All right. So first question, okay. So she has, in having this type of historical trauma within us genetically, what are some of the positive and successful tools or things we can do to build meaningful relationships today?
Yeah, I didn't talk about epigenetics, so that may be something else we can talk about.
Well, like I said, this one topic is going to take the whole hour, so this is why this is a series.
Yeah,
so go for it.
I didn't talk about that, but later for that, because I think what she's trying to say is, okay, given that we've had all of that, today we still need to build meaningful relationships. And interestingly enough, next month I'm going to start cycle 2 of my Healing Haven group, and you can go to draliciawellness.com to sign up. Yeah, so I'm already working with my first group of people, and we're getting somewhere, because these are people who, if you've experienced trauma, then like most of us have, experienced some sort of trauma, and you want to work on your current relationships. I'm doing my second cycle in it's going to be the third Sunday of the month, and it's going to start in November 19th. I think is the third Sunday in November. So you can go to draliciawellness.com to sign up. I think the website was launched today for the convention, but anybody can go up there and sign up for it, because that's what we're working on, like how we're going to take whatever has happened to us in the past, and I have an avenue on how you can consciously kind of lay out, given all of the things that you've been going through, how can you now regulate yourself so that you can live your best life? Like for real, like, you know who and what you are and why you were born. You know what your purpose in life is. You have that sort of knowledge in you. So part of my course is to kind of bring that out of you. Who do you want to be? Who's the Dr. Vibe that you want to be when you're vibing?
So I guess Dr. Alicia is expecting me now to be in that course, because she's
be in there if you want to. But when you're vibing, who are you when you're vibing? And the thing is that what trauma does, it gives us a past painful memory that comes up in our current relationships. And what happens is that you end up being triggered. And when people are in the state of being triggered, they revert back to someone that they aren't proud of. You step outside of who and what you know you are, your best self that you know you want to be. When you're in that triggered state, you say things that you normally wouldn't say. You do things that you normally wouldn't do. You're responding and you're reacting. So what I deal with my clients individually and in this group is that, first of all, we come up with a self-care plan. What's your self-care plan? Second thing, we talk about mindfulness. Like, as soon as you're triggered, how you can help your current relationships is to stop and say, wow, what's going on with me? And then you have to consciously be able to do this. Stop and think about how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and why, instead of reacting. So many of us are so reactive to our environment, but it happens when you're depleted, when you overextend yourself to people, when you don't have a good self-care plan, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not eating right, you're not exercising, you're not taking baths, you're not taking time for yourself. Because a lot of individuals who have a history of trauma, they feel bad for putting themselves first. Because no one, think about developmental trauma. Developmental trauma is saying that the people who took care of you when you were little, they didn't put you first. So when you grow up, how are you going to put yourself first? It's going to feel awkward to you because you've never experienced that. So we get back into experiencing how to put yourself first, not only because you got responsibilities, but you can't give to someone what you haven't gotten. So I think in current relationships, you need to start to learn how to do self-care, be mindful, learn how to set boundaries, and that helps to build your confidence so that you can put your best foot forward, being you, Dr. Vibe.
Wow, we could go for about, because I was going to say to myself, I'd share some of my own journey, but it's not about me, but you triggered in a good way some thoughts of my journey. And it's interesting, So here's a question for you in regards to historical trauma. If someone wants to know if they're experiencing historical trauma, do you have any suggestions? I know there was a test that you haven't talked about in a while that you recommend. It's the something test.
Adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah, is that the ACEs?
It's called the ACEs test. Yes, and it is all. The ACEs test asks you specific questions about what went on in your household before the age of 18. And they ask you 10 questions. And the higher you score on the ACEs, the more likely you are to have medical problems, heart disease, liver disease, obesity, issues with the law. Various things will happen to you the more times that you've had this. So what are some of the things that's happened to you when you were younger? It asks you about, did you witness your mother being physically assaulted? Did you have someone in your family who went to jail? Did your parents divorce or separate before the age of 18? Did someone humiliate you? A caregiver humiliate you? Someone physically abuse you? It asks questions like that. Was there someone in your household who was a substance abuser, struggled with substance abuse? So it asks you questions like that about the childhood environment of which you were raised. And if you say yes to any one of those questions, you get a point. So it's from a scale of 0 means none of these things happen to 10. And there's people who scored. I've worked with people who scored 10s. I've worked with people who've scored really high on the ACEs. They ask about sexual assault and stuff like that have happened to you. And so, yeah, so, that has an impact. It definitely has an impact on your current functioning. Just being, I think how you cope with some of those things. If you had an ACE, oh, good, you pulled it up. Okay, so people can take their ACEs score, and we use it and we apply it in a lot of different ways. So when I work with boys, which is another topic with trauma, is we get into financial trauma and financial anxiety. And so we work with a lot of people in Boyce's, the Black Business School, about how people take the ACEs and why do you have anxiety when it comes to money? And we know that 80% of your purchasing power has to do with emotions.
Emotions.
So if you're not able to get your emotions under check, then you tend to spend, or you tend to be a person who hoards money because you're afraid that you're going to lose it.
No, this is so good because so for people who are watching on Facebook or on my Facebook platform or my YouTube channel, I've put in the comments the link to the ACEs tests. I also just put it up on the screen too. So if you may say, okay, I can't copy it. Well, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, it's in the comments section. Click and you can go for it. And I'm glad that Dr. Aisha's talking about this because it's funny. I've taken it, I've given it to some people and they're shocked. It shocks them going, wow. And I'm saying, okay, well, with these results, what are you going to do next?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, when I ask people, have you been traumatized as a child? Most people are going to say no. But when I ask people, listen, when you were growing up and you came home from school and you had a really tough day at school, who did you turn to help you deal with your problems? I ask all my clients that question. And it's funny because sometimes people say, oh, I went to my mom. My mom helped me. Or my dad. My dad was always there. My mom was working. My dad was always there. Or I had my grandma who was always there. But you'd be surprised, how many people say, I didn't have anybody. Yeah, that's trauma.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm going to instill a little bit of my story into this.
Okay.
So while I was growing up, if I did wrong, my dad would give me the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And it really impacted me to the point at times I was afraid to talk to him. And it took a long time. I think it was in my mid-20s. And this trauma was building up in me for years. And I finally got enough fortitude, guts, whatever you want to call it, to say, you know what, I got to speak to him about this. And so there he was. Now, my dad loves music. For those who do not know, he's a member of the Vinyl Record Collectors Association of America, right? He has, like, if you ever come to Toronto, Dr. Alicia, he had a man cave long before many people had man cave, right? And it's all albums, pristine, put away nicely. My dad still has a reel-to-reel family. He still has a reel-to-reel recorder. So there he was, and he has speakers underneath his bed. That's a whole other conversation, right? So there he was one day, and I said, you know, I gotta tell him this now because it's impacting me. And I said, I don't care what the impact is. I just want to get it out. I said, Dad, I love you. It hurt me. I just want you in a way I knew to raise you. That was how I was raised. Broke trauma for me. Because I heard it from him that he knew no other way. So that's all he knew. So I forgave him. But for all those years, it was building up in me. So that's historical and intergenerational, and historical for years. So, that, and also he was a teacher. So as I tell people many times, I felt I was more a student than his son. So
Yeah,
I hope that adds some value in what you were sharing with us today.
Yeah, that really is a gift. Most of us don't have that and can't have that. Like sometimes parents aren't at the point where they can even recognize that, and it's okay. It's okay. There's ways around it. You don't have to have the parent who did these things to any of us. They don't have to recognize and validate it. I mean, there's ways that you can validate that within yourself. But the biggest thing, and I do recommend people get this book called The Body Keeps the Score. So even with an apology or an acknowledgement from your parents, which is beautiful, you still left with that trauma in your body because you didn't have a safe place where you can talk about some of the terrible things that happened to you at school. You didn't have a safe place to talk about it. Where does it go? It gets locked in, frozen into the body. And, and so I think it's beautiful that that's happened, and I think it's beautiful that you can rewrite your story, and a lot of that is therapeutic, but most of it is releasing that from your body. And we do a lot of work in my groups about how we can release that psychologically, emotionally, and in our body. So I work with a Reiki healer, and she works with all the students in my Healing Haven group, and she gives them tips, and she helps to kind of release some of that trauma that's locked in the body. And that's why self-care, another reason why self-care is so important, because sometimes you need to move. There's different things that you need to do to heal, to heal from a lot of that trauma. Yeah.
So I listen, and I believe there. So there's the title of the book: The Body Keeps the Score: Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma.
It's a great book because it's written for anybody. You don't have to be a therapist to read the book. Anybody can read that book.
Okay. So, so just out of curiosity, Dr. Alicia, do you have a Dr. Alicia's reading list?
I need to come up with one. I really do.
Yes.
I need to come up with one. Yeah, I'm writing that down. Oh my God.
It would be amazing to have a preferred reading list of Dr. Alicia's, or this, maybe you'll become the Black therapist. We'll call you and say you're Oprah's version of Black therapists.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, Oprah's amazing. I like Oprah, although I talk bad.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think, well, you already have enough to do. You're a wonderful mother. You're a wonderful Black woman. You're a wonderful professor. You're a wonderful wife. But maybe having a book club.
There's some talk.
Okay.
Hey,
okay.
Yeah, but it would be great to do a book club on Jada Pinkett's new book. That'd be a good one. To have a book club.
I would join for that. I would join for that. I would join for that. But and any help that you and Boyce need to help to launch at, I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in.
There's some talk. There have been some buzz around.
Yeah, I think because Boyce has his every Wednesday night. He's got his reading of Dr. Claude Anderson stuff. But I think having I don't think you'd have a difficulty launching that at all. It's the key thing is you making the time out of all the other things you're doing to make it happen. But I feel that would go off very well from my lens.
It's in the works. There have been talks of that.
Yeah. See, Dr. Taji, yes, you should definitely have a reading list. There you go. No, I like just some of the books. Like I had never heard about the ACEs test until you and Dr. Boyce mentioned. I knew nothing about that.
Wow. Okay.
I knew, and I'm sure a lot of people nothing about that. And still a lot of people don't probably know nothing about who are Black, and they need to take it.
Yeah, you should take it because a lot of people just aren't aware. And that's the first step, is to just be cognizant of your own personal history. And just be cognizant of it. That's a good way to start. And and um and then you can kind of look at it and process it. There are a lot of people who are just curious about the behaviors. I was talking to a family recently, and they were curious about the behavior of one person in their family member who has mental health issues. And I'm like, read up on it. This person has mental health issues. Get some books and try to have an understanding, because mental health issues is like having a heart condition. It's a
Mm.
condition, and people have experienced things in their past, and that's the reason why they're acting out right now. And so I work with family members who have to deal with individuals who are heavily traumatized and are very reactive and just causing a lot of chaos in families. So yeah, we work to educate other people about what are
Absolutely.
the causes of trauma. Where does it come from? What does it look like? How do you know? Are you displaying that symptom? So part of it is just the self-awareness piece is so important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we're coming to the top of the hour, and I want to keep
Oh,
on time because, but we'll close out with one more question, and it's from Elemental Notes again. She says, "In my experience, it's difficult for others to understand what or why a person may be affected by this. What type of navigation do you suggest for individuals who have come from this type of environment?" Good question.
I mean, first of all, I think it's important to seek professional help. I mean, if once you become aware of it and you start realizing, why are all the relationships and the people who are important to me, why are people running the opposite direction? What is going on? You start noticing the patterns, and you start thinking, God, is there something wrong with me? What's going on? Once that awareness is there, I think you should go and try to seek professional help from someone that you feel like knows you and can understand you. I think that's the number one key to help
Can
you
I?
become better.
I want to politely interrupt. Now,
Yeah.
in this country, there is a lack of Black therapists,
Okay.
and the ones that are there are usually a lot booked up. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts? And sorry to interrupt your question, your
No, it's
response,
okay.
but what are your thoughts about going a Black person going to a non-Black therapist?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you go to someone who's culturally competent and you
Okay.
feel comfortable with them, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
All right.
okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, you're supposed to be competent, right? That's required training for me. When I renew my license every 2 years, I renew my license. I have to have something on cultural competence and sexual assault, and
Mhm.
there's things that are required to keep your license current. So, a very good, competent therapist, I think if you find someone you feel comfortable with, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt you in mid-flow.
Oh,
So
that's a great question. Yeah.
so getting back to what type of you said, recognizing it first and then getting professional help. Do you suggest any other steps?
Yeah. I mean, I think maintain some boundaries. I think that when you come from that environment, and you start to recognize that some things just were toxic, and some things you just like, I just can't deal with this anymore. You can set limits. You can set limits to that. You can be like, oh, I love you, mom, I love you very much, but I'm only going to be here for a half hour, and I'll see you next week for another half hour. Like, come up with your mind how much of it you can take. I know the holidays are coming up, and I always have to
Mm.
with a lot of clients who say, I feel like I need to go home for the break, but I feel obligated. I feel obligated to do these things, and I'm like, who told you this? You can set boundaries and limits. Okay, I can take about this much of it. Can't take no more of it. How much of it can you
I
take?
can only take this much of it. Oh
Right.
boy.
And then there's a way for you to be assertive. For you to say, you know what, I know that you really care about what's going on with me, but I don't feel comfortable talking about that. I'd like to change the subject, or I'd like this to be a delightful visit, and I'm not in the space right now where I want to talk about that, or please don't talk about me in that way. If you continue along this line, or if you continue doing these things, I'm going to leave. I mean, you can't control what other people are doing. I mean, that's what's great about boundaries. It's not about controlling other people. It's about saying, okay, if we're going to continue with this conversation is over, or I think I'm going to leave, I'll be back. I have to take some time to myself. So you have to know and figure out, and we strategize in a lot of my sessions, how you're going to say it. We role play. We do a lot of fun stuff. I have fun stuff in therapy. A good time with my clients.
Okay.
But we make sure that they're prepared.
Yeah. A question for you. Yeah. What is the difference between assertive versus aggressive?
Yeah, well, assertiveness is here's the thing. Let me give you an example. Suppose someone asks to borrow your car because they need to go on a job interview. But at the time and date that they want to borrow your car, you already have plans. A passive person would put the needs of the other person ahead of themselves and say, okay, you can borrow my car for this interview. That's what a passive person would do. And so they don't care about their own needs. They only care about the other person's needs. That's problematic, right? An aggressive person would say, I don't care about your job interview. So what? That's not my responsibility. I got things to do. How dare you ask me questions? That's aggressive, right? You don't need to talk. No one needs to be spoken to that way, right? But being assertive says, wow, congratulations on getting your job interview. I'm really proud of you. God, that's really too bad. I have plans that I've already made. How about this? How about I drop you off at the job interview? You can't borrow my car, but I will drop you off. And when you're done, you call me and I'll be at my event and I'll stop what I'm doing or I'll come and get you. So it's honoring my wishes because I have got plans, but it's also honoring the other person, being empathetic to the other person, but not having them step over you on top of you, setting that boundary. Like I can't loan you my car, but here's what I can do, or I got a cousin who she ain't doing nothing that day. I'm sure she'll take you. It's like working with that person if that relationship is important to you.
Love it. That's a beautiful example. Can I get you for a few more quick minutes?
Okay, let me look at my. Okay.
Do you have that appointment? Because if you do, we're gonna.
I do.
Okay, all right.
Really
so
quickly.
Okay, so two quick things. First of all, Element Note says I've heard some horror stories about some non-melanated therapists, including someone I know being told stop dating Black men. And then last quick question on the bumper. What are some questions a person can ask to screen a therapist as a way to figure out if the therapist is right for them? Good question.
Well, if it's a cross-cultural situation, you can just ask them, what is your history with working with Black people? Tell me about what it is, Mm-hmm.
And then if it's not cross-cultural, what would you, one or two quick questions to ask?
I mean, you can ask them questions. I've had people ask me many questions about my background, my orientation, the type of training that I've had, how long I've been doing this kind of work, what success stories would look like, what would an example of a session would be, and then I say, listen, you can try me out. You don't have to. I mean, there are some clients that it's not a good match.
Exactly.
I there's a couple of like Kevin Samuel-ish couple. And here I am talking about, okay, what's her voice in this? Let's give her a voice. Well, hold on. Let's honor and respect where she's coming from, her perspective, just as your perspective needs to be honored and respected. Let's listen. Let's digest. When I start getting into, let's listen to everybody. Okay, where did those things come from? When I start putting men and women on the equal playing field, and I'm like, hold on, she's your wife. So she has a voice in this and how she wants it to be. And I started doing stuff like that. And then quickly I started realizing this ain't gonna work.
Well, look,
Anyway.
Boundaries of time. We're right at the top bumper. You have a client. So I want to say thank you and your family, Dr. Boyce, everyone, for what you are doing, have done, and will be doing. Elemental Multi is a big thank you for being with us tonight, Dr. Watkins. This was very insightful. Dr. Vibe, thank you for being a vessel for this conversation to take place. No problem, one of many. Dr. Alicia, most importantly for you, make sure you don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. We'll let you go because I know someone's waiting for you.
Yes, they are. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Be well and keep it. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That is Dr. Alicia Watkins, coachingwithdralicia.com and Instagram at coachingwithdralicia. Thank you so much. Elemental Notes, Dr. Tachi, the others that are watching this live on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. This is going to be a series, family. This is going to be the Black family and trauma. As I said, I have about 14 different areas of Black family and trauma that Dr. Alicia is going to talk about monthly. So be ready for this conversation. Again, the ACEs tests, where if you're watching this live on replay on Facebook and or YouTube, the link is there for the ACEs test. If not, there it is right there. It's a little bit long, but if you just put ACEs tests in your favorite website browser search, there's a number of different sites that have it. I just took the top one that was in the search engine that I use on the reg. All right, so that is it. That is all. Now, the Epic Conversation, glad you could make it. So, as always, we just want to wrap up here. Just give me a second. You can watch the replays of the Dr. Vibe Show on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and also the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com. So, some final things. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show, especially on YouTube, and hit the notification button. You'll get notified of Epic Conversations. And also, remember to follow the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. To advertise your product, business, or service on the platform, please email me dr@the drvibeshow.com. That's it. So let's close it out. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless. Peace well. Keep the faith, walk good, and spread the word about the Dr. Vibe Show. We want to reach in a positive way as many people globally as we can. God bless. Peace well. Keep the faith and walk good. Yeah.